pambana. Wamama tusilale, lale lale, wamama tusilale, saya mapambano. Nchi yetu hii ni tajiri, sisi ni masikini, yupo wapi mama simame, wamama pambana. Wamama tusilale.
Today, women's rights to own property, inherit, manage, or dispose of the property in Kenya has continuously been under attack from discriminatory customs, laws, and individuals, including government officials, who believe that women cannot be trusted with or do not deserve property. Earlier in the year, as we celebrated the International Women's Day, the Kenya Land Alliance launched its report indicating that women in Kenya constitute 80% of the agricultural labor force and provide 60% of farm income, yet only own 1% of the land. This highlights a worrying trend. In addition, we see women being disfranchised of their property through repugnant customs, and in some areas, widows are forced to engage in risky traditional practices involving unprotected sex in order to keep their property, such as wife inheritance and ritual cleansing. Indeed, women's right to land is a critical factor, as it not only empowers women but also improves their social status and economic well-being.
Kama for example mzee amekufa, ile succession inasema ya kwamba beneficiary wa kwanza ni mama. So that tusianze kupigana na mandugu. Sheria inakutetea inasema ya kwanza the one to own property ya mwenye amekufa kama ni mzee ni mama, followed by the children.
Kuna ndoa mingi siko katika hii nchi yetu ya Kenya, asiko katika under regime of the laws. Na hiyo ni changamoto kwa wanawake sasa hasa. Wale wameolewa kulingana na mtindo hapo ki-customary. Hizo ndoa zote zinafaa kuwa registered under the Marriage Act. Nafaa kuenda kwa DC, useme mimi nilioa under customary na ninataka ndoa yangu ikue registered.
Shamba sio mandazi. You cannot just come and get rid of history of land. That's why even the CEO was telling us, when you have a claim, put it in writing and come with your documentation. Shamba zote zina historia. Hata kama haijaandikwa, historia ya shamba inapatikana. Ukitafuta utapata. Utapata chifu, utapata wazee, utapata wale ambao watakupatia ukweli kuhusiana na shamba.
Utapata hata kusomesha watoto, kijana ndio shamba inaweza uziwa, a man can sell his land to educate the son. Unfortunately son atoke na kama B-. Sasa hiyo shamba umeona fadhali balance 50-50, maybe unaweza pata kadi ama C+ na aenda ndani.
Most communities, what I always say, at least try and do documentation first, map and understand what is perception and what is reality. Because perception inaweza sema mko na 20,000 acres of community land, reality is that you only have 1,000 acres. So don't plan for perception, plan for reality. So first know your reality. Hata wengine lazima mukalisha wazee muambie hii 20,000 imechukuliwa tuko na 1,000. It is a healing process. So before even you own the land or you control it, the land is protected in the constitution, but don't sit on your rights. First try and do documentation.
There have been numerous presentations today, alafu various arguments from ourselves of land which is not adjudicated, is not registered. And the colleague from National Land Commission recommended to you, please advocate for the registration, for the adjudication and registration of those parcels of land. Otherwise, you are sleeping on your rights, and you'll find yourself in precarious situations when third parties, be it government, national or county, come to extract resources or express other interests. It will be very difficult for you to claim the whole possible bundle of rights that you can claim. Kwa hivyo ukiregister, ukihakikisha imekuwa adjudicated, imekuwa registered, unaendeleza nafasi yako ya kudai haki zako. Community members should be keen. When the Community Land Act ikianza kutekelezwa, kutakuwa na ile register ya community members. Wale watakuwa ndio wanakutana kwa ile community assembly. Hakikisha kuwa uko ndani kabisa. Fida cannot go everywhere. It's me and you who must take that initiative. Chiefs, and I'm glad you have chiefs here who are playing a great role. Then there is more efforts must be made to ensure that more women get to own land. Kuna tofauti kati ya kumanage, kuuse, kuaccess na kuown. Yani wewe unasema hii shamba ni yangu, uko na title deed. Ama wewe na mume wako jina imeandikwa mbili. Kama wewe ni Kagendo, Eunice Kagendo, na bwana ni Johnston Kamau na Johnston Kamau. Sio kusema kama ni ya mzee ni yetu. Ni kweli, na kama alivyosema wakili, mara nyingi ni yenyu kama ni ya mzee, wakati mzee angali yuko hai. Lakini bahati mbaya mmoja akiondoka, basi wakati mwingi kama vile wakili alivyosema, akina mama hupata shida zaidi. So ni muhimu sana wakina mama ku-own. We want to move beyond the 5% proportion.
Na kwa kweli kama Fida tunasema women rights and of course land rights are one of the issues that we deal with. Kwa hivyo we are not about to stop. It's a process that is very continuous for us, and it's something that we are keen on ensuring that we proceed. Kwa hivyo hatufungii hapa, kwa kweli tutaendelea engage, kuongea nanyi ili tuendeleze kazi ambayo tumeianzisha, ambayo ni kazi nzuri sana. Moving forward, as I have said, Fida is committed to this process. This program that we are running currently on this particular support that we are giving to the 3 counties is coming to an end, but not to say that we are not moving forward with the same. So it's an area that we've learned the gaps that there are. We've also learned the areas that require a lot of beefing up, and moving forward we are still keen to engage you. Kwa hivyo bado tutakuja na tukiwaita mtuitike ili pia tuweze kumleta mama, dada yetu, our sisters, our aunties close to acquiring their rights on land.
There are some people who have titles. The land has been hived off from the community land. So my worry and concern is, I mean, which checks and balances can you put there as wakili so that we don't end up with a situation whereby a registered community land has got 10,000 acres, but by the end of the day, it is only 2,000 acres the community can account for.
If you had community feeder wenye tumejiita, and we had 20,000, but tukienda kufanya mapping tunajikuta na 1,000. Swali ni, kama mimi nilikuwa na siko bado kwa serikali, lakini kama ningekuwa hata huyo registrar ningeuliza, kina nyinyi watu mlikuwa wapi? 20,000 inafika 1,000. And it is for you to have that community vigilance. Wewe ndio utaniambia Hashi alipatiwa title mwaka fulani na county council. Brenda anashika shamba ambaye ni shamba ya shule. Because most of this land, even when you are looking at the group branches, walikuwa wana set aside places for public utility. And they'll tell you this is a watering point, this is a school, this is an airstrip, this is this. So if Hashi has a title for an airstrip, and community has never even thought of writing a letter to the National Land Commission to investigate how a private person owns a public land, then how then do we blame ourselves? Tukikuja kuambua na registrar na anaambia title kwa karatasi yenu inaonesha tu itafika 1,000. So community lazima mchukue initiative. Kama kuna public land within community area, grazing point, salt licks imechukuliwa na mtu kama Hashi, andikeni barua kwa tume ya ardhi. Kama kuna private land ambaye Hashi alipatiwa title as a private title na nyinyi hamjaiona title hiyo area, go to the registrar under the Ministry of Land. So in private land, ukitaka kupata anything on private land and how I was given that land, enda kwa registrar of under the Ministry of Land. Ukitaka public, enda. So lazima pia mjue ofisi gani ndo mnaenda kugonga.
Here is a woman who was married after bearing 2 children. The husband moved to Canada and left her home. The father-in-law had 60 acres of land. And the land was subdivided among the sons. So now that the daughter-in-law, who happens to be that woman now, was at home, she was left to take care of the piece of land that was divided for the husband. The husband, wherever he went in Canada, he also got married again. He got another wife there, and the kids. So here at home, the two kids, the husband never appeared for 20 years. But the woman still remained to be there, the wife now, with the two kids. The kid, one of the kid passed on, she was a lady, and she was left with one son. The husband in Canada has retired. He now wants to come back home. He wants to come back home with the family of the Canadian woman, But now, he wants to forcefully evict this lady at home, so that he can fully occupy the 20 acres of land that was subdivided into fully. The woman moved to the village elders. Unfortunately, the father-in-law died at some point with the mother-in-law, who are the protectors of this lady. So she was left helpless. The brothers-in-law, sisters-in-law, and the husband colluded, and they forcibly evicted her. So on January this year, these guys who had colluded, including the husband, they hired some goons. They came, attacked the lady who was staying with the worker in that farm. They wanted to burn them down completely. The worker was burned to death. The woman narrowly escaped. As we are talking, she's in Nairobi, homeless, living with a relative. And she has been strongly warned not to be seen again in that farm of land. So how can we help this lady?
I don't know what kind of marriage. You know, sometimes we talk about marriages and you find really there was no marriage. Because in such a case, you'll have to prove, one, you are married. And of course, in this case, I always advise people first to approach the chief of the area on such matters. They are very useful. The courts respect them a lot. They can get a letter from the chief and take it to court so that the court can now decide on what they are entitled to. The court can also give an order that they return to the home. Yeah, and of course that also ties with your last case on the man who is marrying another woman and coming to get the other one out. She will need the help of course, the chief and the courts. Remember, the man also has a right to the matrimonial home, but he has no right to evict her. Nobody has a right to evict somebody from a matrimonial home. What she needs is legal assistance to assess her rights. It's a matrimonial home, and the law is very clear on that. So the husband, just because he has acquired another wife, cannot purpose to evict her from the matrimonial home without divorcing her. And even if he divorced her, she still has claims under the laws. So I think what she needs to do is tell her to just go to the Fida office in Kisumu or approach the chief and see whether she will be assisted.
I'll ask about demolition of kiosks. 1980 ilikuwa title, 2010 to 2018 mutation ikafanya barabara. What is the role of the county government, NLC and ministry? This is a planning issue and a land use management issue. What I have come in my years of practice, I have come to discover that hata ukiba barabara itarudi tu kusema ni barabara. Because most of the plans that were done long time ago, before even the county government, were very, very clear. And especially if you go even after independence, how towns were planned, you will see that those areas were quite very well demarcated. It is only that when the county councils in those areas came, they discovered that hii barabara yenye ilisemekana itakuwa 60 meter ni kubwa, wacha tufanye 25 meters. Hii ingine tupatie watu. But they did not remember to alter the records. So records ikikuja upate mtu mwenye anataka kufuata sheria, anataka hiyo 60 meters ya barabara. And there's a reason why hiyo barabara ilikuwa 60 meters. So that is what people are doing now, especially in that area. They are trying to catch up. They are playing catch up on trying to sort out the ills that were committed by the previous defunct county council. But issues of the role of the county government, yes, they have a role in planning, nilionesha presentation, even on community land. They have a role, the ministry has a role in planning, so does the NLC. And they plan different categories of land within your counties. So it could be a planning issue. But if there are residents during the demolition that have suffered, or the mutation now, if it's a new mutation that is showing that this road all of a sudden has appeared, that is a cause of concern. Hii mutation ni mimi nimefanya tu recently, inaonyesha barabara all of a sudden tumediscover iko hapa, then that is something that you need to investigate further. But if you go back to the records and see that that road used to be a road then you ask yourself, was the demolition legal or illegal? And once you answer that, then you can be able to determine who can acquire or if they are actually eligible for compensation. Compensation is only for where that property was legally given to you, but the process went through, but that property had not been available for allocation, but you didn't know, or all of a sudden it is required for a public road, and then it will go through a process of compulsory acquisition. Ndio utaenda sasa kwa ofisi ya kina Brenda for compensation.
Mimi niko na title, but I can't, siwezi ona nini ground, but I just have the title deed with me, iko sawa, but nikienda ground ninaambiwa ground hakuna, ikipimwa kuna nyingine, there is a barabara katikati imeshika, kuna post ya stima iko upande hii, so mimi sijui nitakimbia wapi nipate hiyo land.
Kitu cha kwanza Laura ambao unafaa ufanye, sijui kama umetembelea vituo vya ardhi katika kaunti yenu, haujapata usaidizi. Kitu cha pili ambacho utafanya, utaenda katika ofisi ya tume ya haki, NLC office katika kaunti, watakusaidia, alafu utaenda utachukua surveyor, wale wa ministry. So these are some of the areas of cooperation that we work with as a commission and as the Ministry of Land. I know kuna surveyor wa county na kuna surveyor ule wa serikali kuu katika county yako. Kwa hivyo ukienda, either uende kwa ofisi ya surveyor wa serikali kuu, na kama hawakusaidii, nenda katika ofisi ya tume katika county yako, watakusaidia. Ni nini ambacho inafaa ufanye? Utaenda na ile title deed yako. Kuna stakabadhi nyingine ambayo inaitwa lease document, ambayo inasema unafaa utumie vipi ile shamba yako. Kabla shamba haijakatwa ama haijafanywa demarcation, kuna ile planning ambayo siku hizi county wanafanya katika eneo hilo, ama county council walifanya mbeleni. Kwa hivyo walisema mahali pako, shamba lako ni la ardhi la kulima, inafaa ujenge majumba, ni ya kufanyia biashara ama ni vipi. Kisha kutoka hapo utaenda sasa na hiyo title, watakusaidia kupata. Kama umeshindwa unajua saa zingine wanalipisha, kwa hivyo inafaa uende na hela. Kama hauna hela, unaweza ukaandika barua. Itachukua muda mrefu zaidi, lakini unaweza ukaandika barua, tupitia katika ofisi ya tume, itaenda kwenye county, watakupatia surveyor ambaye atakuja kwako bure. Bora tu hautaki afanye kazi ya kupima upya. Atakuja akuoneshe ili ugawaji ulifika wapi na yako inaanzia wapi na ishia wapi. Sawa? Kama yako ni dispute, si kujua tu shamba lako ni wapi, utaenda kwa registrar. Inafaa ujue nani ambaye ofisa atakusaidia. Kama shamba yako labda wewe na jirani mna uzozo kuhusu wapi shamba inafaa iishie, utaenda ufanye claim kwanza kwa registrar. Asipo, vile nilivyosema, enda ufanyishwe ADR katika ofisi ya NLC ambayo iko hapo, watakuita kabla mjaenda kotini, alafu watasaidia kupata boundary ya shamba imeanzia wapi imeishia wapi.
The issue of the affirmative action programs. I want you, Shiro, to shed more light about this one, because I've learned that these affirmative action programs, most of the politicians, they misuse that part.
What we mean by affirmative action, we don't mean that give it to a woman. That there's land you want to access, automatically make an affirmative action and give it to a woman. But we want women to participate in decision making. Have structures that help them to be able to own land in a legal manner without any hindrance. Then also having representation of women. We've seen the case study I presented, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Uganda. These are countries just surrounding our borders. And they've been able to pass policies that have 25 representation of women, one woman represented in a council that deals with land. It is something that we can do it, but it starts with us, ourselves.
Wakili, Amina, it is very clear that a registered community can, with the approval of the members, lease part or whole of the registered community land to a community member, either for individual use, either for farming, or for any other economic activity.
Community Land Management Committee must, it is not may, must shall have consideration and be inclusive and have women sitting in those committees. If it does not meet that legal threshold, I don't think any community land registrar who is applying his mind on the law na anafuata sheria ataregister hiyo community land. It used to happen in the group branches where chairman ni mwanaume, secretary mwanaume, treasurer mwanaume. That was okay. It was not a requirement of the law for it to be gender inclusive. Now it is a mandatory requirement. Ni lazima, si labda, lazima.
Now, how does the TJRC report help in solving community land problems? And do you think there is political goodwill?
Ambayo ningesema ni muhimu katika ripoti ile ya tume ile ambayo inakusaidia sana. Ya kwanza ilipendekeza kuwa na sheria ambayo Bi Wakili Amina Hashi ametuelezea. Ilikuwa ya kwanza kueleza kusema kwamba ile sheria iliyokuwa mbeleni ambayo ilijulikana kama trust land na government land haikufaa. Kwa sababu kuna majamii mengi ambayo yamepoteza ardhi zao kuhusiana na sheria ambayo ilikuwako. Ndio ilipendekeza sheria mpya ije na sasa tuna community land ambayo Wakili Amina ametuelezea, amefafanua kisahihi. Jambo la pili ambayo ilipendekezwa katika ripoti ya tume hile ni historical land injustices. Samehe, sijui inasema waje na Kiswahili. Dhulma za kihistoria, asante. Ilipendekeza pia kuwa na kusikizwa kwa dhulma za kihistoria. Tume ya ardhi ya kitaifa sasa hivi imeshaanzisha mswada huu, umeanzisha katika kaunti kadhaa na tumeanza kusikiza masuala ya historical land injustices. Kwa hivyo that is how the TJRC report has helped. Whether there is goodwill, I want to say that the people of Kenya are the biggest, are the best meters. It speedometer sasa. You're the best meters. Do you think the politicians you elect have demonstrated a goodwill to implement the TJRC report?
I'm called Anne from Turkana. I would like to know, I had a case, and I still have a case in court up to this moment, whereby my husband passed in 2004, and I was evicted from the house. And while I was still settling myself, because my kids were young, and the church intervened, and they were still negotiating with the old man, my father-in-law. During that time of negotiation, my father-in-law processed everything under his names. So the time I applied letters for administration, later on I came to realize everything was reading the names of my father-in-law. In 2009, my father-in-law died. Now, my sisters-in-law and my brothers-in-law are taking my property, which the old man processed under his names. They're telling me it didn't belong to me, it was for their father. So like the court pushed last month, and I think they were asked, what about the kids? Because they are claiming I got married, but I was struggling for my kids, whereby the Diocese of Lodwar chipped in, and they took to me a lawyer, and through Fida Kisumu also, they supported me through the knowledge, and at least I was enlightened, whereby I'm still pushing the issue. I don't know, to such.
And of course, your children, they are direct beneficiaries to that estate by virtue of their blood through the father. And unfortunately, you'll need to get some legal assistance. I'm happy to know that the Kisumu office for Fida was assisting. You should still push your case through that forum. I'm sure they can assist you to get your children to be in the inheritance. As to the issue of, in fact, you say that your father-in-law processed all the land under his name. At any point was the title deeds under your husband's name? See, you see, that is the example of the case I gave, whereby a rich family, they don't bequeath the things to their children, so the property still belongs to the father-in-law, but now that is dead, That is a good thing, because now you can move under letters of administration for the administration of the estate for your children to be named as beneficiaries, so that they can get the share which belongs to their father. That is the only way of benefiting.
There are so many women that do not know where to take their families because they've been displaced, because a multinational or natural resources has been discovered in their locality. How can you encourage women, or how can you advise them? Where do they seek a remedy? And then the second question has to do with how do we improve access to natural resources, even as the women just stay at the periphery and watch such debates go on?
Now, how does the TJRC report help in solving community land problems? And do you think there is political goodwill?
Nafikiria kwanza kuna maneno mawili ambayo ningesema ni muhimu katika ripoti ile ya tume ile ambayo inakusaidia sana. Ya kwanza, ilipendekeza kuwa na sheria ambayo Bi Wakili Amina Hashi ametuelezea. Ilikuwa ya kwanza kueleza kusema kwamba ile sheria iliyokuwa mbeleni ambayo ilijulikana kama trust land na government land haikufaa, kwa sababu kuna majamii mengi ambayo yamepoteza ardhi zao kuhusiana na sheria ambayo ilikuwako. Ndio ilipendekeza sheria mpya ije, na sasa tuna community land ambayo Wakili Amina ametuelezea, amefafanua kisahihi. Jambo la pili ambayo ilipendekezwa katika ripoti ya tume hile ni historical land injustices. Samehe, sijui inasema aje na Kiswahili. Dhulma za kihistoria, asante. Ilipendekeza pia kuwa na kusikizwa kwa dhulma za kihistoria. Tume ya ardhi ya kitaifa sasa hivi imeshaanzisha mswada huu, umeanzisha katika kaunti kadhaa, na tumeanza kusikiza masuala ya historical land injustices. Kwa hivyo that is how the TJRC report has helped. Whether there is goodwill, I want to say that the people of Kenya are the biggest, are the best meters. Aitwi speedometer sasa. You're the best meters. Do you think the politicians you elect have demonstrated a goodwill to implement the TJRC report?
If the widow contributed to, to the development of the property, or if the children, there are no children in that marriage, and she remarries, what happens? Of course, she acquired life interest, subject to not getting remarried in the estate of her husband. So if some of the properties were already transferred to her name, she can still move with them. But it depends on whether she has children. Because if she has children, the priority now moves to the children and not her when she remarries. So if she holds any property, she holds it in trust for the children. It's not her property. And if she disposes it, the children can always sue her, and she'll be in some type of trouble for that.
My name is Naomi. It's just a case scenario. This is a polygamous family, and unfortunately the second wife was not paid for dowry. 8 years later, the husband passes on. She has a kid, but the kid is not born in that marriage. Like, she came with this kid. So now she's been disinherited, like she's been sent away from that family. So how does she fight to at least have a portion of her husband's a piece of land? Because she's been sent away, she has a kid to raise, and she has been living with this man for the last 8 years before he passed on.
In such a case, you'll have to prove, one, you are married. And of course, in this case, I always advise people first to approach the chief of the area on such matters. They are very useful. The courts respect them a lot. They can get a letter from the chief and take it to court, so that the court can now decide on what they are entitled to. The court can also give an order that they return to the home.
Even if women participate in decision making and they cannot make those decisions, what are we saying? If they can make those decisions and they are not in the participatory process of making that decision, what are we saying? What is the quality of that decision?
Wamama, yeshi kubwa wamama, oe